For online one-to-one music lessons with top musicians, visit bmusician.com.
Set Brito's Academy, the first American accredited school.
If you could have a critically acclaimed film or a blockbuster and it can be only one of these two, what would you rather have?
A blockbuster.
You didn't even think.
Yeah.
Hi Janhvi.
Hi, sir.
Welcome to Galatta Plus. And I see that you've had a little milestone. You've completed 5 years.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Hearing that makes me feel very old.
No, but before getting there, I kind of wanted to ask you about this. You know, this is something that you find in some actors and don't find in others. When I'm called for an interview, there's usually a request that says, do you pay for hair and makeup?
As in, like, you?
As in we, like as in to take the interview. And usually it's a no from us, right? Because that's a bit too much of a budget. Why is it important to look good in an interview? I mean, I'm saying we see Janhvi Kapoor on screen glammed up all the time. You're looking a particular version of a particular character, you're lit well and etc. Why am I not allowed to see Janhvi Kapoor in jeans and a shirt, let's say?
You know,
I don't mean Janhvi Kapoor specifically,
But just, no, I understand. I think that's a question that I ask myself a lot as well. And honestly, if it was left up to me, you'd see me a lot more like that. Like today, I didn't have any hair and makeup team. I think at 12:40, they said that you're still going to take 10 more minutes. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll pop into the shower. I guess the extent of it for me in particular is the same as it would be for, okay, I'm going out for lunch. I want to, if a bunch of people are going to see me, I do want to look presentable. But of course, there are days where I really couldn't care at all. But I think it's been perpetuated by this culture of actors being sort of idol worshipped, unattainable. You can't really figure out what it is about them that makes them aspirational, but they always are. And I guess that however much we've progressed towards this trend of being more relatable with social media, with the kind of roles and films that are being made right now, I think an actor still aspires to be aspirational because I've been told as well that that's what makes you a star.
Is there a part of you that rebels against it and says, why should I do what I've been told? Why can't I go to the airport in just my jeans and a t-shirt and not worry about how I'm clicked? Because that is how most people are.
I mean, yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah, I'm not trying to say this is wrong or right. I'm just trying to explore this thing.
But it's a very interesting thought, and I think it's something that we as young actors have been trying to figure out for ourselves as well. I think the one thing that's worked the best for me is to just do whatever I feel like. I mean, I've walked in and out of the airport, sometimes in my pajamas with a pillow in my hand. The last interview I did with you, I came from the mandir with like 1 hour of sleep and no hair and makeup. But then there are times where I feel the chatter gets too much. They're like, oh, you're not looking like an actor, you're not acting like an actor. And then you're like, okay, maybe I should make more of an effort. Maybe people will look at me a certain way. But I really, at my core, I'm a firm believer that it all really comes down to how people see you on the big screen or now on their screen at home.
So you're saying part of it rests on the audience as well?
I think all of it does.
Okay.
And I think that the part that they see of this persona on social media has a lot to do with how they perceive the actor and the personality, and not so much, I don't know what difference that makes to how they, actually it does. You know, there's a very interesting thing that I read from Kevin Spacey once. But now, given the context of what we know about him, it
No, but still,
has a completely different meaning.
Right.
He said that the less that the audiences know about you, the easier it is for them to believe whatever character you give them on screen. I never had the luxury of that because ever since I was a kid, I guess everyone knew everything about me and they were judging everything that I do or don't do anyway. So I don't know if I'm well equipped enough to answer this question because I haven't figured it out for myself. There are days where I'm like, I don't really care. I'm a normal girl. I want to do what I feel like doing. And there are days where the chatter of like, people won't take you seriously unless you take yourself seriously and give yourself that value of being someone. And then those days I'm like, okay, maybe I need to rethink everything.
Right.
But yeah.
But you're not really a normal girl, Janhvi. I mean, you know what I mean, right? It's like you just said so yourself in the sense that you've always grown up under a microscope. That's not the way most people grow up.
It isn't, but I don't think anyone looks at their own life and says, yeah, I'm generic, like I'm part of a flock. Like there's
Right.
something about each and every person that makes them unique and individual. And this is my reality. I think there are the number of people that can relate to my reality are very less. Therefore, sometimes I feel the empathy, the sympathy, and the ability to gauge things from my perspective are very slim. But yeah, like I think everyone has their own unique.
So let's step out. You're stepping out of your own skin and you're evaluating yourself as an actor. Let's now you know what it is to be the reality of Janhvi, right? As in famous parents, this kind of upbringing, always been surrounded by noise, chatter, criticism, a lot of it. So when you see a performance of yours, are you kinder to it than maybe others?
No, I'm meaner.
You're meaner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and I did a 10-day extensive workshop with, I don't know if you know about Mr. Atul Mongia.
Yeah.
And what I, a lot of it was like therapy. And I guess what I figured out from those sessions, and I guess I always kind of knew as well, that the burden of my privilege and my baggage has weighed so heavily on me that I guess every actor kind of has an imposter syndrome. But I think for me it seems a lot more intense because even if like 10 people say something good and one person says something bad, I negate the other people. I'm like, yeah, that must be because of my mom, that must be because of my dad, that must be because I obviously don't deserve everything that I've gotten. I obviously like I'm a worthless piece of shit. So yeah, it's hard to gauge my performance from a neutral point of view. I think I'm much harsher with it.
How do you improve then? Because if you're not able to see your mistakes or evaluate them, how do you say, okay, this is what I did right, this is what I did wrong. So next movie I'm going to.
I think it takes a minute. I think the first time I see myself, I'm like, oh my God, like I should just like leave and die. But then eventually, I guess the film lover in me starts seeing my work a little more objectively. And and I think just my love for the craft and for what I'm doing takes over. And then it's just about, okay, this is where I am, this is what I need to do. This seems like constructive criticism. This seems like my inner demons and their voices and whatever. And then I try to segregate. But it's very hard to get a neutral perspective. Like I know after Bawaal, just in terms of performance, I guess this is the most positive response my performance has ever gotten. But the one critique that I've realized and that I've observed for myself as well is that I need to work on my voice modulation. And I used to think that it was diction, but I don't think it's diction. I think it's that more often than not, I've played back-footed characters, for the lack of a better word. Even Nisha in the first half was quite WE.
Yeah.
So my voice is also daba hua. Like I don't
Yeah.
open my mouth too much while talking. I eat up some of my words, and I wonder if that's a character thing. And it's a very easy crutch for me to go to vulnerability. So I've identified these things, and I know that I need to work on it. I need to, the pace of my speaking, there's a slight lethargy that, again, I use as a crutch to feel or depict vulnerability. These things I've identified that I know I need to work on. I started some classes yesterday and looking up exercises, and so it's.
So this workshop that you did with Atul Mongia, what was that? Was that an acting workshop or?
Yes, it was. It was for this film that I'm doing called Ulaj.
Ulaj, yeah, okay. So it's kind of to kind of change some of what you're doing and do it a little differently.
Well, I did Atul sir's workshops for ghost stories, but that was very brief. That was like, I think, 3 sessions. And I've always kind of, I'm not method at all with my acting. I'm quite switch on, switch off, even with the emotional scenes. So I just wanted to experiment. My director really believes in Atul sir's school of acting and finding your character through those workshops. And I just like, I'm a curious learner. I like to call myself an artist, and it just seemed like an interesting process. I wanted to give myself to it and see what comes out of it.
Can you give me an example of like something that you did in that workshop that helped you in your performance?
You know what I find, that when you're on a film set, it's usually the third or fourth day that you find the character.
The rhythm or whatever.
Yeah, the rhythm, and you're like, okay, maybe who she is. But because you spend so much time in these workshops doing the scenes or talking about the scenes that aren't even in the script. Suppose the script is, okay, I get fired from my job, and then the next day I'm at another job interview. And so what he'll make you do is what happens when your character goes back home and
Yeah,
what
the
they feel.
in
So-
between stuff.
Exactly. So you create an emotional bank and a history for your character, which I think more than anything gives you a lot of confidence as an actor when you're on set. You almost feel like you know the character better than anyone else, which is a great feeling to have. And also with him, I identified that my go-to emotion was always vulnerable. I can like cry relatively easily and things like that. I feel very easily moved by things. And so us working together was more about how do we take that out of your system, take that out of this character's equation. She doesn't use vulnerability and all as a crutch at all. She's harsh on herself in a completely different way. So what that person would feel like, how her go-to impulse would be maybe anger and not, I'm sad.
Right. So you just spoke about, breaking down a script. Are you a person that listens to narrations, or do you read scripts?
I prefer reading scripts, but sometimes directors prefer narrating,
Okay.
in which case you have to respect their wish as well, but I prefer reading.
Right. So when you're reading a script, let's say, or when you're getting a narration, let's say you do you argue with directors? Do you say, but my character would not do this, or like, why is she doing that, or why? I mean, what is happening here? I'm not able to get this point of A to B that she's doing. Do things like that?
Yeah, I do, but more, I mean, honestly, before I didn't have much confidence to do that. I would just be like, okay, everyone here knows much more than I do. I should just shut up and like do whatever. But specifically with Ulaj and even whatever collaborations I've had with Sharan Sharma, who was the director of Gunjan, they were far more collaborative experiences for me, where I was able to tell them what I felt would maybe like feel more organic, and of course there'll always be a debate about it, but more Ulaj than anything else. I
Right.
feel like we made the character
Together?
yeah, a little bit. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but
No, no,
yeah.
it's not. It's the way many actors work. So, like one instance that I was curious about is Nisha and Bawaal. There is this question that arises about why is this, because the voiceover says that before marriage she was happy, she was independent, she was all these things, but she's also got this crippling.
Medical condition.
Right, but it's the feeling about the medical more than the condition itself, the way she kind of is scared about it, right? That so after marriage, there is one line that you say that when your mother tells you that just get a divorce, it's okay, come back if this marriage is not working out, and you use this word umid, hope, that you have some hope that this is going to work out. So did you ask Nitish, why does this character harbor that hope? What is it about her that, because this man is treating her really badly,
Yeah, objectively, like horrendously.
horrendously. So like they don't sleep together. Forget sleeping together. I mean, he won't even sleep on the corner of a bed or something. He's just like, okay, this is sleep on the ground or floor, whatever. They don't. So what is it that gives this woman the hope that this is going to work out or this may work out?
I think having confidence and projecting confidence are two different things. And from what I gathered with my experience with Nisha, I mean, of course, just to understand her, drew parallels with my life. I've been, if today I was in an equation like she was, I would leave like in one
You mean
second.
a relationship kind of
Yeah.
thing? Okay, right.
In a relationship, or honestly, any equation where I was belittled like that. But there was a point in my life where I wouldn't have had the courage to walk away, even though my history before that was of a confident, vivacious
Right.
girl. And I find that happens, that even though your opinion of your condition isn't at the forefront of your being, the history of it, if things in your external environment trigger you in a certain way, your history in relation to your condition comes at the forefront. I don't know if I'm being clear, but you can get past certain things in your life. But if your external environment reminds you of the trauma that you dealt with initially, it can take you back to square one
Right.
a little bit. So I think what happened with Nisha is that her parents gave her a lot of confidence. She didn't feel like her epilepsy was something that was holding her back, but it was a part of her life. And there would have been certain instances in her life where, you know, not everyone was open-minded about what that condition means, or socially how to treat her. And I'm sure this wasn't her first marriage proposal. Me and Nitesh sir spoke about how she's had many before, and this her having epilepsy came in the way of those proposals turning into anything. So I think that baggage, even though wasn't defining every choice she makes, when now she's found herself in an equation where her husband is reminding her every day that it is the reason for her not to be accepted, you go kind of into a cocoon. You shrink a little bit. And your vivaciousness, your confidence, you can forget in a second.
Right.
And then more often than not, you feel like you don't even have the confidence to be like, well, screw you, I'm leaving. Because that's very aspirational. And I wish and I hope that even through the course of maybe seeing Nisha, that's where most girls arrive. But it's easier said than done. More often than not, you're taught to be on the back foot with things like that.
Yeah, and also I think the place matters because she's a small town girl, traditional families, they work slightly differently.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned it in the film, she's never had a romantic relationship before. And I think the fear of not having one ever kind of makes her feel like, okay, maybe there's hope, maybe he'll come around, maybe like something will happen.
Right.
And I think she says it as well, it takes 1 second to just get up and leave because of your self-respect. But it takes a lot more to stay. And more often than not, maybe you shouldn't stay if it's about your self-respect. But Nisha wasn't at that point where she could be courageous enough to take that call.
Right, right. You just spoke about, she's never been in a romantic relationship. You've never been in a romantic movie.
Yeah, and I
You
really,
know, because,
I really
you've had, so Bawaal is yes, you have a, like Varun Dhawan opposite you, but it's not technically a romantic movie, it's a drama. Ruhi's, you've had co-stars, but it's like a horror film.
Yeah, I don't really know what I was doing.
Then Dhadak, technically romantic, but it's not really going into that zone at all. It's like
Yeah.
more like a something else. You never had a
I
proper.
know, and I love romance as a genre. I love romantic movies. I
What's
actually
your favorite romantic movie?
so many. I love Titanic. I love Titanic. Every girl loves The Notebook. I'm one of those girls. I think there's a lot of romance in how a lot of our older Hindi films were made. Like I don't think that romance means specifically between a boy and a girl. I think it also means the way that the director's gaze on the female protagonist is, and things like that. Like I loved the way that Wahida ji was shot in Jaane Kya Tune. There's so much romance in that. It's just her face, but it's the gaze of the male protagonist on her, and there's romance in that. So I guess films like that, and Mughal Azam, of course.
This is such a coincidence because I was talking to Vikram Motwani earlier and we discussed this very song.
Really?
This is very freakish because,
Really?
the song is almost shot through Gurudat's point of view.
It is.
And almost fully.
Yeah.
And like he's following her and
Yeah.
she's teasing him and leading
Yeah,
her.
and there's so much romance. They're not hugging, they're not holding hands, they're not like giggling, none of that. You're not even seeing like beyond a close up for most of it. It's just her eyes, and it's just like the way the camera follows her. There's romance in it.
You said that you've seen only 5 films of your mother's. It's just like, I don't know if that's really a count or you just said about 5 films, but is there any film of hers that you find particularly romantic?
You know, I think that the kind of actor that mom was, the romance was between her and the camera always. Even in like a objectively unromantic film like Mom, but there's something that she does, like her eyes, and it's a very intimate relationship. Might be an unlikely choice, but Sadma. There's something
You're really
very.
going into dark zones.
I've
you
been
know.
told that a lot. I'm not a very dark person at all.
I'm
but
just saying, like I don't know many people that would choose Sadma as an epitome of a romantic movie. It is kind of a romance.
but see, I've only really seen
it's a very
5 of her.
dysfunctional romance, if you
It
will.
is a very dysfunctional romance, but there's I think a purity in the feeling that they captured.
Right.
Chandni, of course, and I mean there are her conventional movies that idolize romance and you know her looking beautiful, but I think in terms of feeling, I guess what I was moved by the most was
Sadma.
Yeah.
We're talking about Bawaal, all the controversies that happened around it. But even before this, I think your very first movie, Dhadak, that had a bunch of controversy around it. From the minute it was announced, because, oh look, this is ultra serious, ultra big, Marathi film
Social
made
film,
by a social
essentially.
film,
Yeah.
and now Dharma is making it. Janhvi is looking like all glammed up, and Ishan is looking all cutesy, and there was all this controversy about how, even before the film came out, there was all this controversy about how, oh, they're going to ruin the film, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. It was almost before the film release, there was that entire. How do you handle controversy? I'm not asking you to get into very specific zones, but in general, when you do a film for whatever reason, and it blows up, how do you just hunker down and say let this pass, or
No, I'm beginning to think it's me, maybe, or just like, I don't know, because like you've just reminded me that it happened before with my first film. But I think for an actor, the choices that they make need to be a unique combination of maintaining the ability to listen to your inner voice and being very personal about your choices, but also having the ability to be extremely objective. See, when the whole thing with Dhadak happened, I really didn't know anything at all. And even after we heard all of this chatter, it had affected me so much
chatter on Dhadak?
on Dhadak, yeah. It affected me so much that I just, and actually, I think it's one of my regrets that I never actually rode the wave of it being a financially very successful film. I was so consumed by all of this noise that in my head, I made it seem like my life was over. And now that I look back at it, for a newcomer's film to do 78 or 80 or whatever the number was, I wish
You enjoyed it some
I
more?
wish I just let myself enjoy it a little bit. I wish I didn't make it such a failure in my head. I wish I valued it a little bit. I guess what you're saying, even with Bawaal, I was a part of a lot of the initial discussions with the makers about what the intention was, what the thought was. I had a lot of clarity on what we were trying to say and where that was coming from. And I believe that it's a very pure thought of just trying to move people by what had happened and try to hopefully motivate them to understand that our problems are nowhere
Right.
near anything compared to what had happened, and hopefully get them to see things in a new way. Because I know when I went to these locations, when you see the extent of what happened, your first thought is always, shit, what if this was me? What if this was me and my family? And that recalibrates a lot within you. So I knew what the intention and the thought was. So I guess I can only really look at the material through that lens. It's like, do you remember there was that picture that came out of this like stupid dress, and some people thought it was white and gold and some people thought it was black and blue, and it was the same picture. And the people that thought it was white and gold could never really see
The other point of view.
the other point of view. I come with the information of the intention and the thought and like everything we felt when we made it, and what we set out to do. So I can only really look at it right now in that way.
So when it's either Dhadak or Bawal or whichever film it is, do you feel I need to defend this? Because I've seen Varun sometimes defending Bawal, saying that, if it's an English film, you don't say anything, but, if it's this one. Just for the record, I did have a problem with the last maybe 20 minutes of Bawal, but till then, the movie really kind of worked for me because, it was a very gradual progression of like first Paris, then, they just the way they go.
Yeah.
What didn't kind of work for me was the Holocaust survivor's speech, because in that particular moment, it seemed as if that man was giving a speech that was tailor made for
Right.
you guys, and that felt a little odd as opposed to you just standing there and experiencing it yourself. This kind of made it like, I'm going to give you some life advice from my horrible experience. I think that was the only part that kind of seemed too overblown. But anyway, when you get into this zone, do you feel you need to say, well, look at Django Unchained, because there, that's a movie about slavery, and that's supposed to be grim and serious and all that, but Quentin Tarantino makes it such a fun movie. Do you feel the need to kind of
Jojo Rabbit for that
Georgia
matter. I mean, like,
Life is Beautiful, whatever, that's another movie that got a lot of flack for making the Holocaust into a kind of game, even though that was the point of the movie. Do you feel the need to defend?
I do, but I think it's also important to understand that once you've made the film, it's out into the world for people to do with it what they must and think of it whatever they feel. All we can do is defend our intention and what we set out to do. And I know that with a lot of confidence, I can say that the heart of the film was in the right place. And we were talking about Jojo Rabbit and all of these other films, and I mean, essentially in that film, although Hitler was a figment of the kid's imagination, he was doing comedy. Yeah, it's a satire, and of course, like all of these things have a larger narrative purpose, and I'm in no way comparing the two films. That film is genius, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it's all a matter of perspective, I guess. I feel sad that what some people got from it was that we were trivializing it. That was in no way the intention. I would like to understand where that opinion is coming from, but I guess there's nothing I can do as an actor right now to change the course of how people have digested this information, because there have been a large amount of people that I guess understood also what we were trying to say, and I guess all I can do now is rejoice that some people did get it.
Okay. So anyway, let's go back to this little milestone of yours of 5 years. Do you remember the first scene you shot on the first day on the set? Because I'm sure you've been on your mother's sets, but this was the first day that you were there on the set as an actor. What was that like? Was your mom with you?
She was. I've only been on the sets of, I think, English briefly
Oh, that's it.
and Mom a little bit. I mean, those were the only two movies she did after marriage. I used to spend a lot of time with her on the sets of Malini Iyer as a kid, but I think she hated doing that. So, yeah, so she was there for my first shot.
Was that a bad thing for you? Was it like,
I didn't want her to be. I feel like I was the most nervous about her being around, and so she hid behind a tree with Manish to see my first shot, and I never really.
but you knew she was there.
She told me that she was, and I found out later that she was.
Okay.
And yeah, I was very nervous about her opinion. It's so funny that you brought this up, because only recently I found out that what she said after my first day of shoot, and this means so much to me, because my biggest thing in life, and I think one of the reasons that I seek external validation so much, is that I never really got to know what she would think of my work. And she had spoken to a friend, not a friend, I mean, I guess he was a die-hard fan of hers, and I think they were working on some book or something, and so they were in conversation, and he spoke to her after she finished seeing my shoot, and she had said, she has it in her. She has it in her to do really, really well. I'm very proud. And I never knew that she said that.
How did you get to know that?
He called me after watching Bawaal.
Who? Manish Malhotra?
No, not Manish. This man called Dheeraj.
Okay, the person who wrote the thing. Okay.
Or is in the process of writing. I'm not sure. But he had gotten quite close to her. He was a fan. He would send her a lot of letters and this and that. And I guess then they started speaking of doing something together. And he spoke to me after watching Bawaal, and he said something, and he was like, Sri ma'am was right, and this and that, what she said that day. And I was like, what did she say that day? I don't know. And then she was like, did she never tell you? Like, did you all never speak about it? I said, no, we never spoke about it. And she was like, and then he was like, she called me after you gave your first shot, and she said that this girl has it in her. I'm very proud. She has it in her to make it big.
You found this out this year?
Yeah, like literally a week ago.
Wow.
And it was such a moment to actually know what she thought, even though it was just one shot. But in the middle of all of this noise around, Bawal's reactions, to hear someone say that, to know that that's what she thought, just, I don't know, it re-energized me to push myself for another 10 years.
Right. Now, your mother's also done a lot of obviously she did Tamil and Telugu films, like Malayalam films too, like before she kind of really went into Hindi full time, almost full time. Now you're getting into
Telugu.
one Telugu film,
Yeah.
Devara, with NTR Jr., Tarak. There's this news that you were offered a Mahesh Babu film with A.R. Murugadas, and you felt you weren't ready at that point.
Can I be very honest, sir? I'm not sure if it's true or not because at that point, I think mom and dad were making a lot of decisions for me.
Okay.
So more often than not, they wouldn't even tell me. And like, honestly, even now, randomly in conversation, Papa will be like, "Hi, yeah, when they had come for you or when they had," and I'd be like, "I didn't know. If you would have told me, I would have been like, yes, please." So I don't know.
Right. Okay. Because I read this piece of news and I was like, what changed? You know, like.
If this is true, it probably meant that mom and dad didn't think I was ready.
Okay.
If it is true.
Right. But you've started shooting for it.
Yes, I've shot 3 days.
Okay. Was it comfortable?
It was so comfortable, sir. They're so loving. It's everything that I've been dying to do for such a long time. I think that my natural state or what comes easy to me is like, I don't know, I guess being lively and like looking a certain way and like doing the glamorous heroine thing that I think I kept myself away from for so long because I was like, I need to prove to myself that I can act and I need to take up all of these challenges. But when I went on set and when they gave me the brief and when I just had fun in front of the camera, it was just the most liberating thing. And they've welcomed me with open arms. Even the people over there, I've said this before, it felt like a homecoming.
How did you handle the language thing?
The 3 days that I shot were actually all reaction shots. There were no dialogues. So the dialogues I think I'll shoot in September and let you know how
You
that
started
goes.
learning them?
No, because I've been shooting Olaj and I went back to Mahi after that. Kotala sir said that 10 days before I start shoot, I'll go and I'll sit with him and sit with the dialogues. And so there's time. I think 1st of September I'll go.
But you don't speak Telugu, right?
No, I understand it.
You understand Telugu, okay. Right, so your uncle and your father have had a lot of success in remaking films from South Indian languages, but your attempts like Millie and Good Luck Jerry, they kind of didn't quite work. And is there any value in remaking films at a time now when people can watch the original in a dubbed language?
I don't know, sir, because I think the films that I chose to remake were also. I mean, I don't know if Good Luck Jai didn't do well because it did quite well on Hotstar. Millie didn't do well in theaters. It got a bunch of critical, I guess, appreciation. But let's speak about Millie in particular. It's not the kind of film that's like a short remake karenge to of course,
Right.
even in its original language, it's I don't know if indie is the right word or niche
It's a
it's not a
smallish
conventional
yeah,
it's a smallish film. So I guess it was in any ways a gamble. And yeah, so I don't know if my choices in remakes are a good example of our remakes working anymore or not. But I think that the fact that we can access films of these other languages so easily from the comfort of our houses is a variable that will play into part.
Right,
But
right.
but I don't know if my films can be a case study for that because they were unconventional choices in any case for theaters.
Right. One of the ways an actor gets to expand their toolbox, so to speak, is by observing, right? That's one of the things Meryl Streep said, that it's like one of the things I do as an actor is I observe. When I'm outside, I look at people, how they, you know, she gets mannerisms, etc., etc. Do you get the chance to do that? Do you get the chance to observe?
I've been observing you this entire interview.
You've been observing me.
Yes, you
Is
use
that
your
going to help
hands
you
a
at all?
lot.
It's like what's there to observe?
You use your hands a lot.
I use my hands a lot. Okay.
You've got very warm eyes, and your left eyebrow is the only eyebrow that goes up when you speak.
Oh, good
very
Lord.
slightly.
That's scary.
Well, yeah, I enjoy observing people. I think being an actor, one of the greatest joys for me in it is that it's an observation of the human condition and the human mind, and I don't think there's anything more interesting than that.
Your mom wanted you to be a doctor. You should have been a psychologist or something like that. So
Probably. I'm hoping acting works out for me still. But yeah, I mean, I guess the psychology aspect of it is what intrigues me the most because I think it's so interesting how each human being is their own specific collection of memories, of baggage, of trauma, of hopes, of desires, and no two people can ever have the same conditioning, baggage, memories, hopes at all. So even when you're building a character, you're birthing a human being, and I find that very exhilarating. Yeah.
So at this point, if you could have a critically acclaimed film or a blockbuster, and it can be only one of these two, what would you rather have?
A blockbuster.
You didn't even think.
Yeah, because I mean, definitely a blockbuster. Correct me if I'm wrong, sir, because I think I'm also seeking an objective opinion of where I'm at in life, because it feels like the hardest thing to get. But I feel like some amount of the, I don't know if I can call it acclaim, but credibility when it comes to my acting has been achieved. But what I don't have is a number, a theatrical number.
But
The
you did say that Dhadak did well.
But I never enjoyed it. Like, I never hammered that. My
So
first
you want a
film did 80.
blockbuster that you can enjoy now?
Yes.
Because you're in a position where you can say.
Also, I think that gives me the reach, and it gives me the reach, and I guess the ability then to do the critically acclaimed films that feed my soul as well.
Right, but don't you think that reach has been redefined these days? Because earlier people needed to reach the audiences only through the movies. But now there's social media, Instagram for instance.
I know, but that's not the kind of reach I'm aspiring for. Like, I don't care for the people that see me outside the gym. That's not what I'm doing with my...
Instagram, I'm saying, like where you put out an image of yourself.
But I'm not an influencer, and I don't want to be either. I mean, there's a lot of respect in that, but my job is to be an actor. So what I'm talking about is reach through my films, and specifically theatrical reach, because I understand a lot of people see your work on OTT platforms, but there's an accessibility again. And there's something about sitting in your bedroom and having the ability to pause, forward, skip, and just like the overwhelming amount of content on OTT platforms that takes away from, I guess, the aspirational quality of an actor.
Right.
I think. And
Yeah.
I think that the kind of reach that theaters give you, if you really get that blockbuster film, it allows you to penetrate into markets that I don't know if OTT has in that way, specifically with our country, the tier 2, tier 3 cities. If you have a theatrical that clicks with them, then those are the people that I think root for you, gun for you, and believe in you more than anything else.
Right, and I think, there was, I'm not naming this actor, but she's a very famous 80s, 90s actor, and she basically said that, I don't want to do things for TV because I'm killing myself acting, putting my soul out, and somebody there is shouting out for another chapati. And that's kind of, I don't think she meant that in a disrespectful way. She just meant that means that the full attention was not going to the performance.
I think, yeah, it's a lot about the value that you give to when you sit in a theater, it's a community viewing experience. Your concentration is on this one person's face that's been blown up to like 5 times its size. And I think that I'd like to believe what I have to offer as an actor demands that kind of attention and value. And so I'd like to aspire for theatrical reach now.
So, looking forward to Ulaj and to the
Mr. and Mrs.
Tarak.
Wine. Oh yes,
No way,
David.
because we'll finally see you as a commercial film heroine.
Yes.
If that's what it is.
Yes.
Yes. So, and to less pauses, less vulnerability, and what is the other thing that you said?
More front-footedness.
And more anger.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Janhvi.
Thank you so much.
For online one-to-one music lessons with top musicians, visit BMusician.com.
25 years of Sid Brito's Academy.